Բարի եկացեք Քրուզյան Զաքարյան Վասկորական Ասկային Վարժարանի Դարեգան խնջույքը. Welcome everybody. Listen, before I get into my speech, I really have to be honest. I turned 40 this year. Yeah, thank you. And I got to the realization that, you know, I don't feed myself, I don't dress myself. My beautiful wife is just kind of like, Asire, Hoskana, Asihakir. So, about half hour before, I pulled out the suit that I'm wearing. Shabik Manaltari, and I was buttoning the shirt and it didn't fit. So I turned 40 and I also apparently gained weight. And I didn't have any other shirt, so I'm wearing this shirt without a tie. I hope that's good. It's just part of life, right? You move on. Tali gave me the look of death, but that's how it is. Daro Sekezi Hago. So good evening. Welcome to KZV's 37th annual banquet. For those who don't know, my name is Hira Kalapchian. I'll be your MC tonight. Grace asked me to keep the speech fairly short, so I was timing myself where I got here. It's about 45 minutes, so just sit tight, buckle up. There's a lot of good stuff, PowerPoint presentation coming. Besides being tonight's MC, I'm also the treasurer of the KZV board. So for those new parents, when your tuition goes up, this is the guy you can thank. I'm also an alum from 1992. Yep, KZV alum, thank you. And I'm also a father of 3 boys who attend KZV as well. Very proud of them. On behalf of the KZV board, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. We know it's a really busy time of the year, and we appreciate you supporting the school. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. As you know, we have a lot of good food, open bar, dancing, but before we get in there, I wanted to ask you guys a serious question. This is going to be an interactive conversation. I want to see a show of hands. Who here goes to Starbucks or has gone to Starbucks in the past? Perfect. Excellent. Okay, great. Follow-up question. Show of hands. Who here has heard of the term Starbucks name? My Starbucks name, right? Raise your hands. There you go, thank you. All right, for those who don't know, let me explain what I'm talking about. The term Starbucks name is typically used by folks who have a name that's hard to pronounce. So they go with a fake name that makes it a little bit more common and easier to say. Orinak. Gangas Anuna Taline, my wife's name is Tali, right? When she goes to Starbucks, she gets a tall, half-calf, soy latte with 1 pump of vanilla. And yes, she does this. And when the barista asks her, oh, can I get your name? She goes, Tina? Now, this phenomenon of a Starbucks name within the Armenian community, it's pretty prevalent. I know most of my friends have a Starbucks name, and based on the number of hands I saw here, it looks like some of you guys have one as well. Mine happens to be Henry. It's Hirak, but I go by Henry. Now, to be clear, we're not using a Starbucks name because we're ashamed of being Armenian, we're ashamed of who we are or where we come from. It's annoying. Right? We're trying to get our coffee. There's a 19-year-old hipster trying to get our name down. Dasijam H as in Henry, R as in Robert. You know, I don't want to waste my time. It's just like, I'll just go with Henry. They're going to call it out. They'll probably spell it wrong anyway. It doesn't really matter, right? Now, we're just tired and we don't want to think about it. We just want to get our caffeine. It'll be fine. It's really not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. We're just tired. Except when we Starbucks name with our kids. Starbucks naming with our children, it's actually a big deal. And it's an even bigger phenomenon than we think. Let me give you an example of what I mean by Starbucks naming with our kids. In Shapti, Gesor, my kids are done with school, Otoin Mechnek, Tung Kishenkor. You have the Huset Khosimor. Daron. I saw that crowd, it was fine. Took me like 20 minutes, but I think I missed the last question or something, I don't know. Okay, դրաս, նայք սպասենք, օրիորդ հոգենը ինչ նիշ պիտա, սպասենք նայք. Yeah, she said she'll have the test results on Monday. So you see the pattern here? Yes, հայերեն խոսեմ նոր. And my son is responding in English, and I'm not forcing him to answer me in Armenian. I've probably told him to speak Armenian 9,937 times in just the last year alone. But I'm so tired of constantly reminding him, I'm Starbucks naming with my kid. This is what I mean by that. As a first generation Armenian American, I went through this myself. Nush, I remember being at your parents' house, right? Baba, Nushik, հայերեն խոսի, հագով կփավե հրագին հետ անգլերեն խոսի, որ հայերեն խոսեցեք. You know, our parents, they weren't tired. They kept forcing us to speak Armenian with each other. They knew how important it was to speak the language. Now, this was such a major issue growing up here in the United States that my classmate's father wrote a book, a short story about it. I went to school with Rubina Palayan, whose father, Yeznik Palayan, he wrote a book full of short stories. One of his stories was titled Ankleren Khosetsek. You see, Rubina and her friend Ani were having a slumber party. Okay, and Polorora, Ankleren Khosin Goridaruhe, and Yeznik keeps telling him, Hayren Khosetsek, Pave Ankleren Khosi, Hayren Khosetsek. So they're in bed, they're snuggling up. Yeznik walks by the door, hears this, and he can't handle it anymore. When he meant Hayren Khosetsek. So he wrote a book about it. Now, being Armenian, it's like a stool with 3 legs, with each leg representing our language, our culture, and our religion. And if any of these falter, you can't really use the stool anymore. It's useless. When we allow our kids to respond in English, we're doing them a disservice. We're robbing them of their Armenian language and making it even more difficult for them to communicate with us. You know, the first thing to go when you Starbucks name with your kids is the vocabulary. You know, you forget the words that you're trying to use. It's really important to get our children to use these Armenian words so they remember how to communicate with us. It is a big deal, no matter how tired we are. On September 2nd, 1962, President Kennedy was giving a speech about the space race between the United States and Russia. And one of his most famous lines in that speech was around this concept of why we do things that are important to us. He said, and I quote, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things not because they're easy, but because they are hard." I say that we send our kids to KZV not because it's convenient, but because we want our children to learn what being Armenian is, and that starts with our language. Learning to communicate in Armenian in the United States is hard. TV's in English, iPads are in English, during recess. We're surrounded by it. It takes so much energy for us to focus on speaking Armenian. But let's not give up. Let's not get tired. And let's do it because it's hard. So in the corporate world, we love what's called takeaways, okay? These are my 2 takeaways for you guys tonight. Number 1, don't Starbucks name with your kids. Don't let up, keep fighting for our heritage and our language. And number 2, please don't go to Starbucks. Thank you. I'd like to invite Principal Grace Argonian for a few words.